Liam, you were at the Emirates yesterday. Very, very exciting game, but probably a game Arsenal should have won.
Yeah, I think we, dominated enough of the play, Eamon, and had enough goal-mouth incidents to win the game. But again, mistakes letting us down. Conceded 2 bad goals. Really, the first one from a breakaway that Luiz was all over the place. Tried to win a ball on the halfway line, and he got done. And the defence was in trouble from that point. Goalkeeper, in my opinion, shouldn't have parried it there. He should have saved it. He should have held on to it. And then the second one, and Xhaka, an inexplicable tackle in the goal mouth. Crazy, reckless tackle that put Spurs 2 up. Of course, Harry Kane doesn't miss many penalties, and he put it away, and we were in trouble. But it did enough to get the draw. Lacazette got a great goal just before half time, and I thought we'd won it with that one that was disallowed. Kolasinac was just marginally offside. But even though we had chances, they had chances too. The midfield on both sides was there wasn't much discipline in either midfield, and both teams were able to counter-attack at will.
Yeah, John, from Spurs' perspective, 2-0 up, and as Liam said, there were 2 sort of cheap goals to give away. But you would expect Spurs not to lose or not to give the advantage up. But they didn't really look to be a team yesterday, I didn't think.
Well, things are not right there, Damon. Pochettino said himself, and I was surprised reading the paper this morning where he said, he's happy now that the window is closed, that Christian can settle down now. I don't think it's that easy, Damon, to be honest. And the way they played yesterday, I thought Arsenal had much more spirit about them. As Liam said, very, very poor at the back, gave goals away too easily. But I don't think it was the Spurs team of last year with the spirit that they had. They were all together. I don't think they can be all that happy. I think, if players want to leave, Eriksen wants to leave. There's no doubt about that, Eamon. And I think he still wants to leave. So I don't think he's a happy camper. And what Pochettino said, everybody's happy now, the window is closed. I don't think that's the case.
No, Liam, the Spurs problem also involves Vertonghen and Alderweireld. Vertonghen was left out of the team. In fact, it wasn't even on the bench for the first few games. He's out of contract. Eriksen's out of contract. Alderweireld is out of contract at the end of this season. Now, we know there was a well-publicised dinner with Daniel Levy, the executive chairman of Spurs, and Pochettino during last week. The dinner was leaked. But it's a very unsatisfactory situation for him after 5 years, very productive years at Spurs, not to know if he's going to have those players or if they're going to walk for nothing in 12 months' time.
Well, yeah, and Arsenal went through something similar about 3 years ago with Sanchez and Ozil, Eamon, and it is disturbing and it does disrupt things. There's no doubt about that. And, there are some players who, having their contract run down, will perform well all the same.
Yeah. But
there are others who won't. They're trying to protect themselves. They don't want to get injured in case they don't get that transfer at the end of the contract. For example, Aaron Ramsey last year ran his contract down. They couldn't agree terms. But he played well all the same. He gave his all. He gave 100% all the same. But there are some players, and Sanchez was one in his last season. Ozil another. I go back to Van Persie.
Yeah.
When just before he went to Manchester United, didn't really perform for Arsenal. And Spurs, as John says, may have the same problem with the likes of Eriksen. Now, Eriksen scored yesterday, but I didn't think he looked that bothered, to be quite honest.
No.
And I think he did want to get away, and I don't know whether Daniel Levy was asking too much money and Eriksen's upset with that, but I'm inclined to agree with John. Pochettino coming out and saying, everything is going to be hunky-dory now, I don't believe that at all.
No, just to go back to Arsenal, Liam, Emery, I think he is a good coach. He did well at Seville, and he's re-energised the club despite not having the kind of financial firepower to go out and buy the kind of defenders he needs, for sure. There is an energy about them and a life about them. And how encouraged are you by what you're seeing?
Well, yes, I would agree with that, Eamon. And I think we have a better chance this season of finishing in the top four than we did last season.
Yeah.
Now, that might be down to the fact that, it certainly will be down to the fact that I think with Pepe and Lacazette and Aubameyang, we're going to score goals. I like that Chabalas, he came on yesterday.
Yes.
I like him. I hope he's not going to just be a player who performs at home, but he's a very, very good footballer. Guendouzi, who played well yesterday, he's a young lad who's learning all the time. He's got lots of energy about him. So I'm more optimistic this season, although, and I think Holding coming back in defence when he's fit. We've got the boy from Celtic, Journey. We've got Bellerin, who can come back in at right back.
Right.
I think we can look forward to a better season, but it certainly won't be a season where we're challenging for the title. I think we'll be very, very happy if we can get into that top four. And, you know, the teams outside of Liverpool and Man City, the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Spurs, the likes of Man United, we've seen so far this season in 4 games, only 4 I know, but they've got problems. All those teams have got problems.
Yeah, John, Arsenal, a lot more spirit about them than sometimes in recent years.
Yeah, definitely, Emma, but they still have their defensive problems, you know.
Yeah.
You saw them yesterday giving the goal away. The first goal particularly was very, very bad. And I was surprised afterwards, Emery making a comment, about Xhaka.
Yeah.
In the 90 minutes, I am proud of his work.
Yeah.
You know, this is a fella gave an outrageous penalty away, and he's the most indisciplined player, I've seen for a long time playing in the Premiership.
Yeah.
Every week, Buck doing stupid things, and he's captain of the team.
Yeah.
So I think he's got to get him sorted out. But there's definitely more energy about them. As I said, they've got the things up front. They're okay. I like Guendouzi in midfield, a young fella. I like that. Still have the problems at the back end. So I think they're going to be hit and miss a lot. You know, I think they score a lot of goals, concede goals, but definitely better than they were last season.
Now,
Eamon, just to finish on Arsenal, I agree totally with John. What Xhaka is doing as captain of the team, I do not know. He's no discipline about him at all, as John has just said. And the coach has to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
So as well as he's done in it re-energising, as you say, Eamon, he's also picking players that shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, no, Jack is a bit of a headbanger, and we'll see him in the Aviva on Thursday. Let's hope he gives a rash.
Well, I hope Mick McCarthy says, look, get at him, rile him up, because if you get into him, pressurise him, he resorts to doing stupid things, and he could very easily get himself sent off. Yeah,
now, John, the big two, Manchester City and Liverpool, they both look extremely impressive. Just to look at Manchester City, a comfortable win against Brighton, as you'd expect. De Bruyne scored early on, 2 minutes, and Aguero got 2 great goals. They look like their levels haven't dropped at all.
No, they've been very good, Eamon, and they did what you would expect of them. Again, they got an early goal, which sets them off, and it's a very, very difficult team for Brighton or anybody else then to get back at them. So they're doing what's needed to be done. There's no doubt. And Aguero scoring his goals again. He's absolutely brilliant. So they did what you would expect them to do against Brighton. But then again, you still have to do it.
Yeah, and there's no signs of them letting up. But there was, Liam, they lost a player, Laporte, to what looks like a cruciate ligament and a bad one. Now they're struggling for quality central defenders anyway, and he was the best of their defenders last year. That might be a major problem for them. The window's closed now, and it looks like it's Otamendi and John Stones. That could hurt them.
Yeah, I don't know what they have in, the younger age groups, whether there's someone that can step up to the plate. I don't know, Eamon. I know they have a very strong youth policy, so perhaps it's an opportunity for a young player.
Yeah.
But certainly Otamendi and Stones have their problems on concentration. They do make mistakes. And if there is an area of weakness in that City team, it's in central defence.
Yeah, and that can hurt them, particularly when they step into Champions League, or the serious parts of the Champions League anyway, where the better teams will be the opposition. Liam, Liverpool again, 3-0 away to Burnley. Could have been more. They're in their own way just as impressive as City, perhaps. Although first clean sheet they've kept, but there were signs that if Burnley had quicker strikers, they may have been in trouble. But they got the 3-0 result. I want to ask you about the row between Mane and the bench, and Salah not passing to him when he only had a tap in, but Salah was greedy. He was also greedy with Firmino, and Mane stormed off the pitch in a rage. Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
Well, I think there's an element of that been going on for a while. You know, they're quite selfish, Salah and Mane. And I noticed last year that Mane, there was times when he could have passed to Salah and he didn't do it, you know. Yeah. And I think there is a rivalry there. I think there is a genuine kind of competition going on there to be the top goal scorer.
Yeah.
It's the other guy that knits it all together. Firmino, he does the things properly. He plays the ball to people in better positions and things like that. But I think there is an element of that going on. And you have to remember as well, he was substituted, Mane.
He was.
And he seems to get more. He seems to be more times he's substituted than Salah. And there's probably a little bit of rivalry going on there. But I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, John, it was quite funny in a way. Firmino at that stage had come off as well, and Henderson, and they were trying to calm him down. The game was won. I think Salah, on this occasion, Salah was really, really selfish. He could have played Firmino in for a really good chance, and Mane, he could have played in a few minutes later, and it just would have been a tap in. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't think it's good, Eamon.
Really?
No, I don't. No, there shouldn't be rivalry in players. You know, all the great players over the past. You know, we had the three with Neymar and the Barcelona trio. You know, to be fair to them, they always played in a professional way. Messi is the best in the world. Well, one of the best in the world, certainly. Yeah. But he also played for the team when there's somebody on to do it. I think it's the right thing to do. You know, even when you had like Best Charlton and Law at Manchester United, apparently like Bobby Charlton didn't get on all that with Dennis Law or Georgie Best, but there was no way that he'd be unprofessional in doing what needed to be done.
Yeah.
You know, all goal scorers can be greedy. I mean, they can be a bit greedy, but they shouldn't be overdone to the extent that one player is upset with another player. It shouldn't happen.
Right.
I mean, it just shouldn't happen, and it doesn't do the morale of the team any good. Not really.
And just, you were watching the match. We were talking to each other during the match. The Liverpool still inclined to play that high line and not pick up runners, although the two Burnley strikers, Wood and Barnes, didn't have the kind of pace that would trouble them, so they were easily able to get away with it. But there were still signs that they're not 100% at the back, and if you can think of Raheem Sterling running at them, John, they might have real problems.
Well, again, against any team, Eamon, I think they're just chancing their arm and just getting out and hoping that the players would run offside. And as you say, like the Burnley forwards, the two forwards, weren't good enough to take advantage of what they were doing. But, you know, they'd want to be careful playing against the better teams, Eamon. If they do that, I think somewhere along the line they're going to be caught out. So they want to be very, very careful.
Yeah, Liam, Manchester United away to Southampton had a great start. This young lad, James, they bought from Swansea, who I think looks a proper player, scored a great goal after 10 minutes. But they gave it up, and Southampton were good value for the draw. And Pogba had an absolute nightmare.
I didn't actually see the game, and I saw the highlights.
Yeah.
And I would believe you on Pogba. It doesn't surprise me at all, because anytime I've seeing him play, he very rarely gives a complete performance. There's always something wrong, and on some days he lets people run. He doesn't track he doesn't do his midfield duties. He gives the ball away too easily. And by all accounts, you're telling me it was one of those days. You just can't rely on that lad.
Yeah.
And he's still there. The window's going to close today, I think, or in Europe. So he's probably not going to go anywhere. And he's a real problem to have in the team. He's a player that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't create a team spirit within a team. He can damage that kind of work that the manager wants to do. And I think United have similar problems to what they had last year. I think Lindelof at the back is a terrible defender. He's got a mistake in him every week. I think Maguire coming into the side has made it better, but unless Maguire gets a real good partner alongside him, they're going to have problems.
Yeah, John, and I'd apologise in advance to one of our listeners who corresponded with me last week. Andrew McGrath said he's sick of hearing us talk about Paul Pogba. I replied to him, and he subsequently sent me another mail saying that he was a Manchester United fan. But the point of talking about him is, and I know you watched the whole game because we were talking during it, he really was very, very poor. I didn't seem to really care.
Well, that's the problem with him, Eamon. And I saw, Solskjaer made a statement afterwards, putting it in a positive way that, Pogba is staying. I'd like to see him. Pogba is going.
Yeah.
Get him out of the place. I mean, they're trying to do the right thing. The lads they brought in, Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James, Maguire, McTominay is good young fella. So they have a lot of promising players coming through to improve the team. But if you have Pogba, who should be a positive influence and a star to the team, is not. He played very, very poorly again at the weekend, and I think the best thing to do is get him out.
Yeah.
Whereas making a positive of him staying. If he's going to stay and you make it a positive, then he's got to play well, and that hasn't been the case. So you can imagine in the dressing room, Eamon, the morale in the dressing room where players know that he's not doing it, and they're relying on him and they're relying on each other. It's a team spirit, and if you haven't got that, then it's very, very difficult to get everything right.
Yeah, and he's the highest paid player at the club now that Sanchez is gone, and he's the most high-profile player there as well. It doesn't look really as if Solskjaer has a grip on that club, does it, Liam?
They might be in a situation where they're going to be chopping and changing managers until they get it right, until they get the right man in. Certainly Mourinho wasn't the right man for that job, nor was Van Gaal. And I'm not too sure Solskjaer has that authority about him to kind of get the players to really knuckle down and give 100% and have that. Maybe that managerial skill of getting the team to be hard to beat. They give away too many silly goals. I think they've got problems, and it's going to be a test for them as well to get into the top four this season, because there are other teams out there, Eamon, Everton, and there was a good game yesterday against Wolves. Wolves are decent. Leicester City under Brendan Rodgers are playing well. So it's not a given that they can get into that top four, Man United, without any doubt.
Yeah, now, John, Liam mentioned Leicester there and Brendan Rodgers. He's a good coach, Rodgers. He's done well wherever he's been. He's got an eye for a player. And he seems to be getting the best out of Jamie Vardy. He was hugely impressive in the game at the weekend. He scored 2, made 1. And, OK, they're only playing Bournemouth. But Vardy is a really good player, isn't he?
I think he's been brilliant, Eamon.
Yeah.
He's very. I think he's underrated, and he scored goals year in and year out.
Yeah.
I think he's a top. I really, really think he's a top player, and certainly I think any of the teams like Manchester United could do with him, Eamon, for example, in a big way.
Yeah.
But I think Vardy has been very, very, very terrific player over his time at Leicester, and again, Brendan Rodgers, to be fair to him, he had a tough time at Liverpool, as we know. But he has done a good job, Eamon, and he definitely has improved that team.
Yeah, Liam Vardy's a real good player, and his work rate as well as everything else at the weekend was terrific.
Yeah, he links up play well, Eamon. He chases after everything. He chases in on goalkeepers. He gives them a real problem. Central defenders, they haven't got time on the ball because he closes down so quickly. And then when he gets the chance to finish, he finishes. That goal with his right foot lobbed over the goalkeeper was absolutely brilliant. And the season they won the league, he scored some unbelievable goals, and a lot of them as well. So I think, like John says, I think he's a brilliant player. And under Brendan Rodgers, I think they are going to threaten that top six, without any doubt.
Yeah, and Rodgers has a good record. When you look at his managing, coaching career overall.
So unlucky not to win the title. Remember Steven Gerrard slipped over against Chelsea.
Yeah.
And then they gave away a lead, I think, at Crystal Palace. They could have so easily won that title, and Rodgers probably carried the can. And it wasn't unfairly he carried the can for not winning the title that year. I thought he did a great job. And, the players that Klopp now has at his disposal, Brendan Rodgers got them to the club, and the likes of Coutinho, was it, Eamon, who went to Barcelona. Yeah. The money they got for him, enabled them to spend on the squad, like the likes of Virgil van Dijk coming in. So I thought Rodgers did a really, really good job at Liverpool, and of course at Celtic as well. So it's not surprising. I mean, you'd have to say that he'll be up for one of the top jobs in England again if he carries on this good work at Leicester.
Now, just a question, Liam, I want to ask you before we finish. It's about Shane Long, who came on as a sub for Southampton against United late on. Mick McCarthy's decided not to put him in the squad at all for the game against Switzerland on Thursday. It's a strange decision. I'm not wanting to have a go at Mick. He's done a good job since he's been back as coach of the Irish team, but that seems very strange, given Shane's experience and, the pace he brings, and even if you were to have him on the bench to come on. I can't really figure that out. Can you?
No, I find it very strange as well. I don't know whether there's been a disagreement. The fact that Long, maybe in the last squad, didn't get to play, I don't know. But what have we got up front? We've got McGoldrick up front and the lad at Sheffield United, Robinson, who played very well at the weekend. But take those two out, and we've got very, very little. And it's really hard to understand why Shane Long's not in it, because, as you say, he has a pace, he has a spirit about him. Okay, his goal-scoring record is poor, but he is a useful player. And, we don't have many in that position playing in the Premier League. And it's very hard to understand. I don't know what's going on.
Just finally on that, Liam, Callum Robinson he scored a real good goal for Sheffield United at Stamford Bridge. They came from 2-0 down to get a 2-2 draw. There's 4 Irish lads in that team, and the left back in particular, Stevens and John Egan, very good players. So it has given, we've got 4 more players now in the Premier League with Sheffield United. So it is a help to Mick, and it does prove that we're still producing players to some extent anyway. Maybe not Liam Brady's, but the good players.
No, but it is a very, very encouraging fact, that they are playing in the Premier League. They've come from nowhere, Sheffield United. Only a few years ago, they were bottom of League One before this manager came into the job. And now they're in the Premiership and getting results like they did against Chelsea. And I thought Stevens at left back was outstanding in the second half against Chelsea. He was the reason that United got those 2 goals. So it's very good. Sometimes players take a long time to mature, 27, 28. And, at 20, they're not really on the map, Eamon, but they do mature sometimes later. And I think Mick is going to have the advantage of that, particularly with those lads you've mentioned. So big game against Switzerland, but one we can certainly win.